Do the Clippers have a third option? Do they need a third option? Who are the potential guys that could be the third option or just the third leading scorer? Coming up on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. I am your host, Darian Vaziri, 18 years, a Clipper fan, a diehard Clipper fan. Also have my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper Pod and Podcast, where I go live after most Clipper and Laker home games and take vlogs when I go to sporting events, including many Clipper games. So check that out if you're interested. And of course, NBA history as well. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about if the Clippers need a third option or if they even have a third option. In the last episode, I talked about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, what we were going to expect from them, what we should look to expect from them statistically, and just how big their roles really are to win the championship for the Clippers. Not just get to the finals, not get to the conference finals, to actually get over the hump and do something that's never been done before in Clipper history. But for Paul George and Kawhi, it's a little bit more self-explanatory. They have to lead the way. They have to play make. They need to lead the team in scoring. They need to be good defensive players. Although I didn't talk too much about Paul George's defensive side of things. But I think that Paul George will be guarding a lot of good players throughout the season. But throughout games, I don't think he'll be guarding the best players a lot. But that's why there are certain guys that I'm going to talk about today, or in today's episode, that could be the potential third option or third. So when we say the word third option, it's kind of, we need to go in depth a little bit more on that. Third option is usually used in terms of talking about a third scoring option or a third offensive option. So we're going to talk about the potential possibilities for those. But there are certain guys that could be the Clippers' third best player that aren't the third option offensively. And we'll get into who those guys are. But let's start out with the guy who I think is going to be the third leading scorer on the team and the closest thing to a third option. And that is Norman Powell. I know a lot of you guys may be thinking Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris Sr. Considering what I've said about Marcus Morris Sr. in the previous episodes, we don't know if he's going to be on the team in the long haul, depending on how it looks when the Clippers get out there to start the season and the first couple months of the season. But Reggie Jackson, I have more confidence. I could be wrong, but I have more confidence that he'll be a member of the Clippers to end the season. So Reggie Jackson, I'd say, would be the biggest competitor, but I think Norman Powell is going to be the third option. I think he's the best scorer after Kawhi and Paul George. He can score from all three levels. I don't know how great his mid-range really is, but in terms of today's game in pick and roll, that shot is, it's there in drop coverage when certain teams drop and guys can come off screens, and I think Norman Powell can hit that shot, but he can also hit the three ball. He's also really solid going to the basket. He's got those bulky shoulders and kind of has a little running back kind of style to him where he can bully you going to the rim, kind of bulldoze, even though he's only like 6'3", 6'4". But he can really finish strong going to his right especially, and is just a good finisher, good scorer, and can play make a bit and pick and roll. So I think that is part of the reason why he is my leading candidate for third option. The main reason. I think he's a better scorer than Reggie Jackson. He can get to the basket more, and he can play make basically as well in pick and roll from what I've seen so far. His defense, it didn't look bad in the 2019 playoff run with Toronto. I mean, the difference is I'm not a Raptors fan, so I didn't pay attention to it like locking in on it like I would if the Clippers were playing. But liabilities tend to stick out at that level, and he didn't. He passed any test they threw at him. He was a rotation piece, one of only 8 players to really play minutes in that finals run for Toronto. So there's no reason for me to believe that he's going to be a total liability. He did have some questionable moments, just kind of getting blown by much easier than I expected in the games that he played. And mind you, for the Clippers, I should say. And mind you, he only played 5 games for the Clippers last year because the second he got traded to the team, he got injured. And 5 games played, 2 started, and then the play-in game. So really only 6 games played for the Clippers so far for Norman Powell. And in those games, he only played 25 minutes, but he averaged 21.4 points per game to go along with 3 rebounds and 3 assists on 51% shooting and 54% from 3. Yes, I said that correctly. 54% from 3. So he was lights out when he played for the Clippers last season. And I think obviously those stats are going to drop a little bit. If I had to make a prediction, I'm not going to get too into like the decimals like I did in the last episode, but I'm going to go with 16 points a game, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. I think that would be the third leading scorer on our team at 16 points a game, and I think he's going to be great. I did predict the starting lineup to be Paul George, Nico Batum, Kawhi Leonard, Reggie Jackson, and Ivica Zubac. So based on that, Norman Powell would be coming off the bench. He would be our true sixth man to me. Come in, play make, score, and I think he's going to be amazing in that role. This is going to be a bigger role than he had in Toronto when he won the championship, and he's gotten better since then. For reference, that season with Toronto, he came off the bench. He played in 60 games, but he only started in 3. So yeah, he came off the bench, 8.6 points per game, and then 2 rebounds and an assist and a half. So that's just typical, like, 19 minutes a game, 7th, 8th man kind of stuff. 8th man, really, because Fred VanVleet and Serge Ibaka played more minutes. But then the next season, the season when Kawhi came to the Clippers, you saw his role increase. He had played in 52 games. He started in half of those. His minutes got increased by about 10 to 28. And he averaged 16 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. So an 8-point increase, basically double in the 2020 season when Kawhi left. So that tells you the leap he made at age 27. And we got him in his prime, or the Clippers have him in his prime, which is something that's something to be very excited about. He also went to UCLA, was the best player on the 2015 UCLA team, in my opinion. So he already has been around here. And he's from San Diego, so he's close to home. He's going to enjoy being here, and I think he's going to have a great season. And then the next year after Kawhi left, the Clipper curse breaker year, 2020-21, for Toronto, he started in 58 games. And actually, no, that was the season he got traded from Toronto to Portland for Gary Trent Jr. On Toronto, he averaged 19.6 points a game in 42 games. And then in their 27 games, he started all of them for Portland. In the second half of the 2021 season, he averaged 17 points a game, and fairly efficiently, too. And the last time he was in the playoffs for Portland in the 6-game series that they lost to the Denver Nuggets, he averaged 17 points per game, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists, shot 50% from the field, and 38.5% from 3. So really solid stats in the playoffs as well. And then last season, for the Blazers, 40 games played. He started 39 of them, averaged 19 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. And then for the Clippers, I already said, 21, 3, and 3. So those are going to drop, as I said. But his field goal percentage, I'll say 48% from the field and 38% from 3. The last, 2022 season, he shot 54. I'm sorry, that's just for the Clippers. In total, he shot 42% from 3 last year, which is amazing. 42% from 3. 41% in 2021, 40 in 2020, and 40 in 2019. So, man, that's very impressive. I'm going to go with 38%, though, just to keep it safe. If he shoots any better than that, we are in business. And the Clippers have been one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league the last 2 years in terms of percentage. And one thing I love is that they don't overdo it. They don't overdo the threes. And one thing I like about Norman Powell is that he has a pretty high basketball IQ. He spent several years in college and just kind of, I haven't gone too mad at him about, I know there's going to be some bad shots he takes and stuff like that. But when you're a good shot maker like Norman Powell, that comes with it. Overall, though, I think he's going to be a smart player. I don't think he's going to be a defensive liability. And I think he's going to be able to be kind of the de facto point guard or the smallest guy on the court when the Clippers go to certain small ball units. Norman Powell is my pick for the clear-cut not clear-cut third option, but the leading candidate to be the third option or the third leading scorer. Reggie Jackson, I believe he'll average around 13 points a game. He'll be the next leading scorer. But Marcus Morris Sr. could be around that mark as well. However, I'm just more, as I said earlier, I'm more confident that Reggie Jackson will be part of the team. Last season, Reggie Jackson had his highest scoring season for the Clippers, obviously, with everybody out, 17 points a game. And he played in 75 games and started in all of them. So shout out to Reggie Jackson for his availability in both seasons. In 2021, he only missed 5 games, played 67 out of 72. But what we saw last season was his shot attempts increased by basically double. He went from 9 shot attempts a game in 2021 to 16 last season in 2021-22. And his field goal percentage dropped. Even though he went from 11 points per game to 17, he went from 45% from the field to 39%, and then 43% from 3 to 32%. Or 33%, I should say, if you round up. And that's because he was getting more attention. He was having to take tougher shots. He was one of the leading scorers and had to do a lot. Even when Paul George was healthy, you would consider Reggie Jackson was probably our second scorer. And that's just a little tough for him. He's much more suited to be either your bench point guard or a catch and shoot kind of occasionally create offense point guard with other stars around him. And that's what he's going to go back to being this season. So I think he averaged 31 minutes a game last year. I think it's going to be closer to the number we saw in 2021, which was 23. I say he plays around 24 minutes this year and averages like 13 points, kind of in the middle of 2021 and 22. Hopefully his percentages go back to around that 45 from the field and 40 plus from 3. Again, if we have Norman Powell and Reggie Jackson shooting 40% from 3 and Paul George around that number as well, sheesh. Because Nico Batum's going to shoot a pretty high percentage. But anyway, speaking of Nico Batum, could he be a candidate for that third option? What about Robert Covington? We're going to answer those questions when we return. Sick of managing your finances with buggy spreadsheets, or have an inbox overflowing with bills, or simply afraid of checking your bank statement? Then it's time you take back control of your financial life with Rocket Money, formerly Truebill, our favorite financial app. Why did Truebill change its name to Rocket Money? We'll tell you what we heard. Truebill, now backed by Rocket Companies, has grown from a bill management app into a full-blown personal finance empowerment tool that helps over 3.4 million people with budgeting, lowering bills, canceling subscriptions, and more, saving each of their members, on average, $700 a year. And with all that growth comes the next evolution in Truebill's story, a new name. Bottom line, Rocket Money is everything I've loved about Truebill with a fresh look and feel. Start canceling your unused subscriptions and save money at rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba, or download the app from the App Store or Google Play Store. All right, back here on Locked On Clippers, we are going to talk about which potential guys could also be in consideration for the third best player on the Clippers this season. Now, I say third best player, not third option, like I've been saying, because I don't think these guys are going to be looked at as third offensive options. They are more 3-and-D guys that are going to guard our best players. And those 3 guys in contention are Robert Covington, Nico Batum, and Terrence Mann. But Terrence Mann, I'm going to save for the next episode when I talk a little bit about Amir Coffey, Terrence Mann, and maybe a little bit of Marcus Morris Sr. Actually, I would say Terrence Mann, Amir Coffey, and Luke Kennard. But Robert Covington and Nico Batum, I think, are the more reliable choices that are going to get more minutes and are more experienced. And they're more, Terrence Mann can be hit or miss sometimes, whereas Nico Batum and Robert Covington have been very consistent so far in their tenure with the Clippers. Obviously, Nico Batum, this is going to be his 3rd season with the Clippers. Robert Covington entering his 1st full season with the Clippers. But I said Nico Batum would start, so I'm going to go to him first. He is going to be 34 this season, so he's on the older side. The last 2 seasons, or the 2 seasons that he's played with the Clippers, he's averaged very identical stats in terms of points per game. 8.1 in his first season with the Clips, and then last season, 8.3. Turnovers, 0.8 the first season, 0.7 the second. Blocks, 0.6 the first season, 0.7 the second. Steals, 1 in both seasons. It's crazy how close his stats are to one another. 2.2 assists in the first season, 1.7 last season. And then rebounds, 4.7 in 2021, 4.3 in 2020. So it's safe to assume he's probably going to average around the same. I'd say around 8 points per game. And his field goal percentage has been fantastic. He averaged 25 minutes last season. I think that's going to drop to 22. He averaged 27.5 in 2021. But I'd say around 22 minutes with the addition of Robert Covington and the maturation of Terrence Mann. But his field goal percentage is what's been amazing. And again, identical to his first season with the Clippers, both seasons. 46% from the field and 40% from 3 in both seasons. So I'm going to go with the same stuff. Why not? 46% from the field and 40 from three. Again, I've mentioned three guys in this episode. If we can get them shooting 40% from deep, all of them, Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, and Nico Batum, that's going to be incredible. And the way that's going to happen is shot creation with our stars playing, or the Clippers stars playing. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard can create so much. Even John Wall is going to be able to create so much. And yes, don't think I forgot John Wall as the wild card candidate for the third best player on the Clippers, and could very well be. A lot of you guys have probably wondered, why hasn't he mentioned John Wall yet? Don't worry. But Nico Batum, one thing that's also been pretty good about him so far with the Clippers is availability. He missed 5 games in 2021, 13 games in 2022. That hurt. And he's been so important for the Clippers because, as I said in previous episodes, he's a connector. He does all the little things. He moves the ball very quickly, doesn't dilly-dally on the ball. He's really good at shooting the ball from three, as you can hear from the percentages. And in the corner especially, he's fantastic. But he just also has a great feel for the game in the sense that he's in the right place at the right time. He gets offensive rebounds. He cuts and moves without the ball really well. I've said several times he's probably the best spontaneous mover without the basketball that the Clippers have, in my opinion. When the defense is loaded up staring at Kawhi or Paul, he'll cut from the opposite side of the court right to the middle to give them a chance, or give him somebody to pass to. He just does the little things. And that's why I really like him, and think that even when he's not playing great, or should I say not shooting great, he could be 0 for 2 or even 0 for 3 or not even not even attempted a shot, but he can still affect the game with his communication on defense. And that's one thing you really notice watching him live as well. If you go to games, he really communicates on defense. He knows where to be. He knows who the Clippers are, which matchups to switch, which matchups not to switch. Just knows all his coverages. Extremely intelligent player. So I'd always have Nico Batum in contention for the third best player on the Clippers. But a guy who also has shown similar tendencies to that has been Robert Covington, who was just incredible in the games that he played for the Clippers last season. 10 points a game. He played 23 games. He came with in the Norman Powell trade, for those that aren't aware. 10 points a game, and only started in 2 of the games. So he came off the bench for 21 of them. 10 points a game, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block. And he shot 50% from the field and 45% from 3. Expect that number to drop. I see him shooting around. He shoots a lot of threes, so the true shooting percentage stat is going to be much better for his field goal percentage than just telling you his field goal percentage. And it is, in today's game, it is better for most statistics, for most efficiency evaluations. But Robert Covington just shot lights out. So I think he's going to shoot around 45% from the field. I want to say 43% from 3. I know that's an optimistic number to target. But hey, he shot 40% from 3 in 2021 with Portland. So why not? And he really gets good quality looks with the Clippers, and he's only going to get better quality looks, as I said. The same thing with Nico Batum. And he has the ability to guard. Usually I like him more in a help defense kind of role, but what he will be our small ball center, the Clippers small ball center. When Ty Lue goes with the small unit, he will be the tallest guy, and they will be switching everything. He'll be able to switch onto 5s, onto 1s, onto wings, everything. And he has the ability, as I said, to knock down the open 3. And he's got a decently high basketball IQ too, especially on the defensive end. And one thing about him, he's a cool guy. I was able to be part of a sit-down similar to the one that I've described with Jerry West, with Robert Covington. Shout out to Clipper Nation, some fans that were generous enough to let me join that. But he was just a nice guy, and he seems to really like being here. And of course, he re-signed with the team. So it's safe to assume he wants to be here and he's happy to be here. And I think he has a real shot of being the Clippers' third best player this season because of his ability to stay on the floor, because he can play well at both ends. And he also can snag 4 or 5 rebounds down for you. So, John Wall, we will end it with him when we get back. And also, a former Clipper, a very beloved one, joining the purple and gold. We're going to talk about that very briefly before we say adieu today. Coming up. I know what you're wondering. John Wall, where does he fit into this? Well, I saved him for last on purpose because I feel as though John Wall could very well be the third best player on the Clippers. Obviously, if you look at the names on paper, John Wall is the third biggest name on that roster. He has the ability or had the ability to get to the basket, to get to the paint whenever he wanted. He was a fantastic facilitator, both on the drive, driving and kicking, or driving and dumping down to a big man, or in pick and roll. His mid-range had improved each year before the injuries started just piling up. And he was a tenacious defender and a very intense player. And I think John Wall will still have some of those tendencies. That's why the Clippers brought him in, to get to the basket and drive, get the defense to collapse, kick out to all the shooters the Clippers have assembled, all these 40% three-point shooters that I've mentioned, the Robert Covingtons, the Norman Powells, Reggie Jackson, if he can return to that 2021 form he was in shooting the three. But John Wall is there for that reason. Defensively is my biggest question mark. How good will he be on that end of the floor? Will he be one of the guys that the Clippers really like using in terms of the small ball lineup? Because you see the smallest guy, a smaller guard. Even though John Wall's big, I wouldn't call him a smaller guard. He's really muscular and just a built guy. But 6'2", 6'3", has a chance to be exploited by certain big lineups. And what I mean exploited in today's game, it's not as much one-on-one targeting a mismatch. It's more getting whoever the weakest defender is guarding to set a screen for your best player. You saw that with Luka Doncic in the playoffs with Chris Paul. He was getting whoever Chris Paul was guarding to come set him a screen, whether it usually was like Dorian Finney-Smith, somebody who can't create off the dribble. And I can see them trying to do that with John Wall. And it's just a matter of how good John Wall is staying in front. Because if he can, the Clippers can use him and switch things. They won't have to play all the pick and roll straight up. And that's where you see guys get played off the floor. It's when you have to play the pick and roll without switching, meaning that you have to send a guy to help for a second or show on the ball handler and then rely on rotations to get back. But the thing is, with today's modern spacing, with all the shooters spread out, just that inch of throwing a double team at a ball handler, you can, if one pass is made, you can have a 4-on-3 situation in which they're basically picking you apart like it's a fast break. And that's where the advantage comes in. So that's why having guys that can switch are so beneficial, and that's why the Clippers are in such a great position, having Kawhi, Paul George, Nico Batum, Terrence Mann, and Robert Covington that are all going to be able to do that. John Wall, we'll see. It really all depends on how his defense is. But if John Wall is anything close to what he was in Washington, then he will be the easy, clear-cut third option. There's no doubt about it. And the Clippers have really lacked a true point guard the last couple of seasons since they got Kawhi and Paul George. And John Wall is, in the sense, a true point guard in the sense that he's a really good passer, but he was more of an attack-first point guard, meaning that he would look to score, and through his attention or gravity, he would dump it off to guys and create looks like that in the pick and roll with Marcin Gortat. He made him look so good in all those pick and rolls. But John Wall, in the 2021 season with Houston, he started all 40 games that he played. He averaged 20 or it rounds up to 21 points a game, 20.6 points a game, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. The thing is, he only shot 40% from the field and 32% from 3, but he was also getting 32 minutes a game, and people were looking at him as, the main option when he played with Houston. He's going to have way more attention taken off of him, or a lot more attention taken away from him with the Clippers, with the threats that they have on the floor, than in Houston. And that is going to open things up for him even more. So it could very well be John Wall, who's the third best player on the Clippers this year. Do not count him out. But I still say Norman Powell is the safest bet to be the third option. Now, I wanted to end with this. Patrick Beverley, one of Clipper Nation's finest, one of Clipper Nation's own, spent 4 years with the team. It felt like 3 years because he missed basically the entire 2017-18 season. But going to the Lakers. What do I think about it? Well, Pat Beverley is free to do whatever he wants. You know what I'm saying? The Clippers traded him. They moved on from him because he wasn't available enough, didn't play enough games. And they made the right decision because that turned into, at the time it was Eric Bledsoe and Justice Winslow, but it became Norman Powell and Robert Covington. So it was a great move by Lawrence Frank, Michael Winger, Jerry West. They did a great job. So I wouldn't be mad, Clipper Nation, that the Clippers don't have Patrick Beverley anymore. But seeing him play for the Lakers is going to be a little bit tough. Again, I have no hatred for the Lakers, and I don't think that's a rivalry. I'm one of the Clipper fans that does not think it is because it has no historical significance. And plus, in recent times, it's just been hyped up regular season games. Hasn't been playoff matchups. So I don't think it's a real rivalry. It's just bragging rights for a couple. Like, it's just this, again, the same arguments always happen. It's Clipper fans will brag about the record recently. Laker fans say 17 rings. So, but the thing is, Patrick Beverley was maybe the most anti-Laker Clipper that I've seen in my time as a fan. He embraced the whole underdog mentality that the Clippers kind of go off of and ride with. He repped it so hard, and he was so vocal and animated when the Clippers played the Lakers. So I feel like it's just going to suck to see him probably embrace, because Pat Bev is that kind of guy. He goes all in with the team he plays for. And you saw it in the play-in game, celebrating like that in the Clippers' faces, calling the Clippers weak-ass Clippers and saying more not safe for work things about them. And that hurt as a fan, even though I can see the emotion and I can feel where he's coming from. It just sucked because it's the same guy that I saw at a game this past season, wearing an Ivica Zubac's jersey, sitting there courtside rooting for the Clippers like he was a fan. And I know that's going to be done. Now he's for the Lakers, and even though there's not a real rivalry, there is that in-city spat, as I call it. And he may just go all in. I just hope to see him not trash the Clippers and just take these unnecessary shots. But in the games that they play against them, especially opening night, he's going to look to play hard. He's going to try to look to agitate guys, get under Paul George's skin, and take shots. And I just hope that it doesn't lead to me not liking Patrick Beverley, because the thing is, as loyal as I am to the Clipper players that have helped advance the franchise, and yes, I said it before, anybody that was on that 2021, that team that made history, I call it the curse breaker team. So when I say that, that's in reference to the 2021 team, getting past that dreaded second round that haunted the Clippers for so long. And Patrick Beverley was such a big part of that. I said I would always be thankful and always love them. But Patrick Beverley, to go at the Clippers the way he did, weak-ass Clippers and everything else he said, it was just a little much, and it makes me want to beat him. And now it makes me want to beat him even more that he plays for the Lakers, even though I have obviously no control of the games. But as a fan, it makes me want the Clippers to destroy them. So I just hope I don't end up disliking Patrick Beverley. I think what he did for the Clippers was amazing. But at the end of the day, it was only 4 years, really 3, because he missed so much of that first season, and he was injury-prone for a lot of it. So I don't want to... I tend to not be one of those fans that treats him like Chris Paul or Blake Griffin, who I know a lot of people don't like Chris Paul, but man, he did a lot more for the Clippers than Patrick Beverley, and that's just a fact. But anyway, overall, it's insignificant. I just wanted to talk about the emotional side of things. Do I think it helps the Lakers match up with the Clippers? Sure. Do I think it makes them better than the Clippers? Absolutely not. Do I think they're going to win even 2 games against the Clippers this season, barring injury? If both teams are healthy, I got the Clippers winning at least 3 of them. But I could see them winning 1 with Pat Bev and Pat Bev acting like it's the championship again. But anyways, thanks for joining me. If you guys want to find me, you can always suggest things. I'm always looking to get better at this. I'm still new to this thing. Find me on Twitter or Instagram at DimeDropperPod. I respond to your messages. Tell me what you want me to do better, or ask any questions you want me to answer on the show. And remember to subscribe to my own YouTube channel if you're a basketball fan, Dime Dropper Podcast, or all things LA Sports on YouTube. Thanks so much, guys, and have a great day. And go Clippers, of course.